The dust hung thick in the air of Silverbrook's Main Street, coating everything in a fine layer of grit that matched the gray exhaustion etched into every face. Sheriff Marcus Kane stood on the wooden steps of the orphanage, his weathered hands gripping his hat so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Behind him, the matron, Mrs. Caldwell, wrung her hands nervously, her eyes darting between the lawman and the crowd of women gathered in the courtyard. It had been 3 months since the fever swept through town like wildfire, claiming victims with cruel indiscrimination. Marcus's wife, Eleanor, had been among the first to fall. She'd spent her final days caring for the sick, her gentle hands soothing fevered brows until the illness claimed her too. The grief had been crushing, but Marcus had little time to dwell on his loss. He had 2 5-year-old daughters who needed him, and a town that depended on him to maintain order during chaos. Sarah and Emma, his little twin girls with Eleanor's copper curls and his own gray eyes. They'd been staying with Mrs. Caldwell during the worst of the outbreak, safely away from the sickness that ravaged the town. But now, as Silverbrook slowly rebuilt itself, Marcus faced an impossible reality. He was a single father in 1882 Wyoming Territory, a lawman whose duties kept him away from home for days at a time. He couldn't raise 2 little girls alone, and everyone in town knew it. Mrs. Caldwell had been the first to suggest a practical solution. "You need a wife, Marcus," she'd said bluntly one evening. "Those girls need a mother, and you need a partner. Half the women in this town lost their husbands to the fever. There are good women out there who'd be grateful for a home and a family." The idea had sat in Marcus's gut like a stone. Choosing a wife as if selecting a horse at auction felt wrong, a betrayal of Eleanor's memory. But what alternative did he have? He couldn't leave Sarah and Emma to grow up motherless, raised by a parade of housekeepers and temporary caregivers. They needed stability, love, a woman's gentle hand. So here he stood, facing 15 women who'd accepted Mrs. Caldwell's discreet invitations. Widows mostly, ranging from barely 20 to past 50. Some he knew well, others were newcomers to Silverbrook who'd arrived seeking fresh starts. They stood in a loose semicircle, their expressions a mixture of hope, desperation, and resignation. Each one understood the transaction being offered: a home, security, and social standing in exchange for caring for a widower's children and managing his household. Marcus cleared his throat. "Ladies, I appreciate you coming here today. I know this is an unusual situation, and I want to be straight with you. I'm looking for a mother for my daughters, not," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm not looking for romance. I'm looking for partnership, someone who'll love my girls and help me give them a good life. Any woman who agrees to this will have my respect, my protection, and a comfortable home. I won't promise more than that, but I won't give less either." The women nodded solemnly. Most of them understood perfectly. In this harsh land, survival often mattered more than sentiment. "I'm going to bring Sarah and Emma out now," Marcus continued. "Because the truth is, they're the ones who need to feel comfortable with whoever joins our family. So I'm giving them the choice." Mrs. Caldwell touched his arm. "Marcus, they're 5 years old. That's a heavy burden for children." "Maybe," he acknowledged. "But they lost their mother. They deserve to have some say in who might fill that role." He went inside, climbing the narrow stairs to the room where his daughters waited. They sat on the edge of a small bed, identical in their matching blue dresses, their copper curls tied back with white ribbons. When they saw him, their faces lit up simultaneously. "Papa!" They rushed to him, and he knelt to embrace them both, breathing in their little girl scent of soap and sunshine. "Are we going home now?" Sarah asked. "Soon, sweetheart. But first, I need your help with something very important." He sat on the bed and pulled them onto his knees. "You know how Mama went to heaven?" Their small faces grew solemn. Emma nodded. Mrs. Caldwell said Mama's an angel now. "That's right. And Papa has to work a lot to keep the town safe, which means I can't be home with you girls as much as I want to be. So we need someone to help take care of our home and take care of you. Another Mama, in a way. There are some very nice ladies downstairs who might be able to do that." Sarah's brow furrowed. "A new Mama?" "Not to replace your Mama," Marcus said quickly. "No one could ever do that. but someone to love you and be there when Papa can't be. Would you like to meet them? The twins exchanged one of their mysterious looks, that wordless communication that had always amazed Marcus. Finally, they nodded together. The courtyard fell silent when Marcus emerged with Sarah on one hip and Emma on the other. He set them down gently, and they pressed close to his legs, suddenly shy in front of so many strangers. "Ladies," Marcus said, "these are my daughters, Sarah and Emma." What happened next would become legend in Silverbrook, a story told and retold for generations. The women began introducing themselves, some crouching down to the girls' level, others offering gentle smiles. There was Martha Reynolds, a sturdy widow who ran the general store. Catherine Walsh, young and pretty, who'd lost her husband in a mining accident. Agnes Porter, who'd been Eleanor's friend and who knelt with tears in her eyes to greet the twins. Sarah and Emma were polite but withdrawn, hiding behind their father's legs as woman after woman tried to connect with them. Marcus felt his heart sinking. This wasn't working. The whole idea was foolish, expecting children to choose a stepmother like selecting candy at the mercantile. Then a figure moved at the back of the group. Marcus had barely noticed her before, a slender woman in a faded brown dress, standing slightly apart from the others. She didn't push forward or call attention to herself. Instead, she simply stepped into a patch of sunlight, and something extraordinary happened. Emma gasped. Then Sarah. In perfect unison, the twins pulled away from their father and started walking toward the woman, their steps quickening until they were running. "Papa," Emma called over her shoulder, her voice filled with wonder. "That's her. Papa, that's her." Sarah echoed, and both girls crashed into the woman's skirts. The woman knelt immediately, her arms opening instinctively to catch them. Marcus stood frozen, watching his daughters embrace this stranger as if they'd known her all their lives. The other women stepped back, surprised and some clearly disappointed. Marcus moved forward slowly. Up close, he could see the woman was younger than he'd first thought, perhaps 30, with dark hair pulled back in a simple bun and eyes the color of warm honey. Her dress was patched but clean, and her hands, now stroking his daughter's hair, were work-roughened but gentle. "I'm Marcus Kane," he said quietly. She looked up at him, and he saw intelligence in those honey-colored eyes, along with a deep, bone-tired sadness that mirrored his own. "Olivia Bennett," she replied. "I only arrived in Silverbrook 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Caldwell told me about your situation." "Where did you come from?" "Kansas. My husband and son died of cholera last spring. I've been traveling since then, looking for a place to start over." Sarah tugged on Olivia's sleeve. "Do you know songs?" "I know lots of songs," Olivia answered. "Mama used to sing to us," Emma said softly. Something passed across Olivia's face, grief recognizing grief. "My little boy loved songs too. His name was Thomas. He was 6 years old." The twins seemed to understand, in that mysterious way children sometimes do, that this woman knew their pain. Emma took Olivia's hand. "Will you sing for us?" And right there in the courtyard, with 15 other women watching and the sheriff standing by uncertainly, Olivia Bennett began to sing. It was a simple lullaby, sweet and soft, and before she'd finished the first verse, both Sarah and Emma had laid their heads against her shoulders. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. He'd expected to choose a wife with his head, making a practical decision based on sense and necessity. He hadn't expected his heart to have any say in the matter. But watching this stranger hold his daughters, seeing them relax against her as they hadn't relaxed with anyone since Eleanor died, he felt the first stirring of something he'd thought buried forever. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said, not taking his eyes off Olivia and the twins. "I think we're done here. Ladies, thank you all for coming. I appreciate your time and understanding." There were murmurs, some disappointed, some graciously accepting. The women dispersed slowly, casting curious glances at Olivia Bennett, the stranger who'd somehow won the day without saying a word in her own favor. When they were alone except for Mrs. Caldwell discreetly watching from the doorway, Marcus crouched beside his daughters. "So you're sure? This is the one you choose?" "She smells like Mama's garden," Sarah said simply. "She's got kind eyes," Emma added. Marcus looked at Olivia. "What do you think, Miss Bennett?" This is a big decision. We're essentially strangers. We are, she agreed. But I think we're strangers who understand each other's losses. I can't promise I'll be the mother your wife was, Sheriff. But I can promise I'll love these girls with everything I have. I know what it's like to lose a child. I'll honor that gift if you'll give me the chance. Just Marcus, he said. And I'm not looking for a replacement for Eleanor. I'm looking for someone to help me build a new future for these girls. Maybe for all of us. Olivia stood, still holding Sarah's and Emma's hands. Then I accept if you're offering. I am, Marcus said, and meant it. They were married 3 days later in a simple ceremony at the church, with Sarah and Emma standing between them holding wildflowers. It wasn't a love match, everyone in town knew that. But as the weeks turned to months and Marcus would come home to find Olivia braiding the twins' hair or teaching them to bake bread, as he'd hear laughter ringing through the house again and watch his daughters bloom under her gentle care, he began to think maybe love didn't always start with passion. Sometimes love grew slowly, built on respect and shared purpose and the quiet gratitude of two wounded people helping each other heal. And sometimes, just sometimes, the wisdom to choose that love came from two 5-year-old girls who looked at a stranger in a courtyard and somehow saw exactly what their family needed. "Papa, that's her," they'd said. And they'd been absolutely right.